It's another day and your life is predictable. You've been stuck in the same routine for months, maybe even years. You feel like you're just going through the motions day after day with no real purpose or enjoyment. Sound familiar? If so, it's time for some change.
There was a point in my life where I used to dread each day. Things just weren't what I thought they would be. And upon hindsight, when you've got all these grand goals, you're not actually really looking where you're meant to be looking. And that was me, focusing on external things, material things. And in this video, I'm going to go over some key areas that really helped me change my life. I used to work for a company, and every year it just seemed like we just wasn't making enough money. And eventually that caught up with them. Another company bought them out because they were failing. And like what most companies do when they get bought out, they want a fresh start. So in order to do that, they got rid of the majority of the people that were making all the big main decisions. And this involved starting from scratch and going back to the basics. And I think far too often we're scared to start from scratch. We're scared to start again. And even if you were doing something previously that was giving you results, that's not to say that that same thing is going to continue giving you results, which is what this company was doing. For 20 years they were doing the same thing day in, day out. They failed to evolve and they got rigid and they got stuck in their ways. And their way of thinking was so rigid, in fact, that there was no flexibility. And when I think about it, they failed to experiment. There was no reflection on what they had done. And because they were failing and they needed to make money, there was a haste on bringing all these fancy people from fancy companies with high salaries. And anyways, it was too little, too late. They had run out of money. Their rigidity had caused their demise. And when you're rigid with your goals, it can cause the same rigidity. Naturally, we want to do well when we put pressure on ourselves. We're tough on ourselves. And the same thing happens with your goals. Sometimes you might be too rigid with what you want to achieve. Naturally, yes, we put pressure on ourselves, we want to do well. And let's say you deviate off plan, there's a tendency to just say, what the hell, when you dig yourself even a deeper hole. And in the end, that's only gonna knock your confidence. Let's say you're trying to get fit and you start working out and you miss a few sessions. It's not the end of the world. But it can be demoralizing when you get back in the gym and you're not doing what you used to do. And I myself give myself a little bit of flexibility. I give myself 2 days for not working out. And that can be anything from just taking some time out with family, or that I just need a couple days of rest. And I find that this is my sweet spot. If I leave it any longer than 2 days, when I go back, my confidence is slightly knocked. And this allows me to have a little bit of flexibility. And most importantly, it gives my ego a little bit of rest. It gives me a way out for a short period of time. And when you're so rigid with your goals, you're more than likely to break them. And sometimes you see this in the fitness industry with diet plans. You have cheat meals or cushion goals. These are set up to keep your confidence in check, because whilst trying to make change, you need to be confident to try and achieve your goals. Have you ever been in a job and someone starts and a few months down the line they're not as capable as they perceived or what they said? How does this even happen? Well, one factor is that they probably were the most confident out of the group of people that interviewed. And we could argue that confidence is one factor that in the face of failure, that if they're confident, that they will pursue. They will endure to continue to go on. Now, when you're on this journey of change, you need to recognize that life is about choices and trade-offs. And these choices all have a cost. And the question is, are you willing to pay for it? You don't get fit or a dream role simply by not just putting the hours. So the most important question is, what cross are you willing to bear? What stone are you willing to lift up? And doing what you love sometimes is not always loving what you do. I love the feeling after a workout. I love the results I get. I love the after effects, but I don't necessarily like waking up early or dieting or watching what I'm eating or actually running on the treadmill. It's not always what I want to do and it's not always enjoyable. But I know that my goal is longevity. And it's almost as if that we need to remind ourselves of this overarching mission that we have when it comes to making change. And when you're making change, you almost need to have a mission or a goal that is so compelling that you're willing to put in the energy. You're willing to focus and home in your attention. Because when you're playing this game, no one can outwork you because you're just playing a different ball game. And I don't mean this in a nasty way, but the majority of us are in our own heads. We're thinking about our own families, our own jobs, our own life. And it's in our nature to compare one another to some degree. And I was very much like this. In 2020, I had to make a change. I had to make a real decision. And for far too long, I had been putting too much weight on the opinions on others. And for a while back then, I wanted to change career. I wanted to do something that was creative. And for the longest while, I chased money or just chased what was paying me at the time. When you start to shed this feeling of being judged, it can be so liberating. And for the first time in the longest while, I felt free. I felt free to do almost anything I could do. And it was liberating. It was a mixture of excitement and fear, because fear of the unknown and excitement of the possibility of what I could achieve. And every now and again, that feeling of being judged would creep back in, and I would think, am I taking a step back? What would other people think? I really had to overcome this fear of just being judged. And eventually I got there, because again, I had this overarching mission that I had to home in, and it was so compelling to me. And I really do think in life sometimes you need to make a stand. You need to take a stand for something that you believe in yourself. And again, that feeling of doing it for yourself is unexplainable. And after a while, you'll find that people actually will respect you, because you're actually living a meaningful life that means something to you. You're not doing anything because you have to or because you feel like you're forced to. I had to be real honest with myself. What drives me? What scares me? What mistakes have I made? And what excuses am I giving? And if you want to make this change, I reiterate, you need to really be honest with yourself. Because we can lie to our friends or our family, but deep down inside, we know. We know if we have this untapped potential, which can be the worst thing sometimes in hindsight. And when we're in this space of regret, we distract ourselves, whether it's playing video games or being on our screens. And distractions are just distractions, but you really need to have this self-awareness of when you're being distracted and why you're being distracted, and the path that gets you onto that distraction. And sometimes distractions are good, but you need to be choosing the distractions, not the distractions choosing you. And for me personally, there was a time where I would consume endless amounts of fitness content and entrepreneurship. And rather than wasting time looking at all these people trying to emulate their successes, I should have just been searching for questions after I had taken upon my own action. A large part of change is your thinking. How you reflect on your feelings, your insecurities, your desires, and your experiences. These are all arguing against each other in your head. And when you become aware, you're not so blindsided, you're not reacting emotionally. And you can decide whether you make these changes incrementally or, if you're brave enough, all at once. The more you become aware, the more you know your true wants. And even a little change can make a significant difference in your confidence. And your ability to adapt to life's curveballs is the key here. Learning how to change and finding ways to approach your challenges. The only constant in life is change, and maybe you're experiencing this right now. The feeling of fear, the feeling of the unknown, I know it can be scary. And when you approach a period of your life where you actively make a change each day, you can see yourself making a transformation, a version of the person who you aspire to be.